Welcome to the Great Birth Rebellion podcast. I'm your host, Dr. Melanie Jackson. I'm a clinical and research midwife with my PhD, and each episode I cast a critical eye over current maternity care practice by grappling with research and historical knowledge to help you get the best out of your pregnancy, birth, and postpartum journey. Welcome to today's episode of the Great Birth Rebellion podcast. Today we're looking at the topic of vaginal birth after cesarean, what we call VBAC, and specifically how to improve the chances of your next birth after this cesarean being a vaginal birth. Not every woman who has a cesarean section will want to have a vaginal birth for their next birth. Some women will choose to have a repeat cesarean section, but lots of women have feelings of dissatisfaction if they have a cesarean section, especially if they feel like they didn't really need one. So whatever the reason and circumstances around your previous cesarean section, I hope this episode gives you some hope that a vaginal birth is possible for your next birth. In fact, the research suggests that women should be offered the opportunity to have a vaginal birth after a previous cesarean section, even if you've had multiple cesarean births. So if this is what you want, there are very few circumstances that would rule you out of a vaginal birth. And today we're speaking with Marissa from Twice Blessed, who just months ago gave birth to her second baby vaginally after an initial cesarean section for her first baby. And her twin sister, Beck, is planning to do the same with her second baby after also having a cesarean section with her first. So Beck and Marissa are twins, are both planning VBAC births for their second births. And I'm bringing you Marissa's story because I want to show you what sheer grit, determination, and stubbornness can do for you during your birth. What you'll see in Marissa's story is that her birth circumstances were far from ideal. She didn't have continuity of care. She came to the decision to have a vaginal birth late in her pregnancy, yet she was able to create a circumstance for herself that contributed to her ultimately having a vaginal birth. In this episode, she stacks all the strategies that she used to help have a vaginal birth this time. And as usual, when we share birth stories on the Great Birth Rebellion podcast, we don't do it all the time, but we do it with purpose. So you'll hear little extra bits from me as I add commentary and little educational nuggets scattered throughout the story. So this episode is for you if you're hoping for a vaginal birth for your next birth or if you're supporting women to do so. In this episode, I'll highlight particular parts of Marissa's story that were pivotal decision points that increased her chance of getting the birth that she wanted. So let's get into it. Welcome, Marissa, to the Great Birth Rebellion podcast. Today, we're going to hear your VBAC story.
Yes, very excited.
My attention was drawn to your story because you recently had a VBAC and your baby's 14 weeks old.
Yes.
And you shared a little bit about it online, and there were women asking you what kinds of things helped you have a vaginal birth after your previous cesarean section. So I'm really keen to talk to you about that.
Amazing.
Before we start, how about I'm going to let you introduce yourself so our listeners know who you are. I know who you are. But if you could share a little bit of what you do with your day and your life, who you are, and then we can jump into your birth story.
Well, I'm Marissa. I'm one half of a fashion blogger duo with my twin sister, Beck. Our business name is Twice Blessed. So we've been around for, I want to say 12 years. So a long time in the fashion industry. And we recently launched our own fashion brand, Major, about 2 years ago now. So alongside our business baby, I had a baby, she had a baby, I had another baby just recently, and she's pregnant now with her second. So it's been a very full past 4 or so years. Now I have transitioned to motherhood, which I adore beyond anything else. So I feel very blessed to be a mum and have beautiful children.
So Twice Blessed, which you run with your sister Beck, who also is currently pregnant, and you were pregnant together for, again, these your second babies, and you're both planning a VBAC.
Yes. Yeah, it was very exciting. It's funny when before Beck fell pregnant, it was a wonderful surprise. We had always said we can't get pregnant at the same time because someone needs to work, and we can't both have pregnancy brain. But alas, excitingly, she fell pregnant as well. So I was in my last trimester. She was in her first trimester. So possibly the worst time to both be pregnant at the same time, because we had two half brains working together. It was a massive joy to be pregnant together with my twin. It was really special. And I'm really excited for her now, transitioning into the last trimester of her pregnancy and aiming for her VBAC as well, which is awesome.
And she's got you to lean on with planning her next VBAC.
I was the guinea pig and I passed. So she can just kind of like copy and paste for herself, which is really, really good.
Well, I'm hoping that lots of women can copy and paste, because there are lots of women out there who are listening who want to also have a VBAC. So part of what I really love to extract from your story is what elements of the planning and strategy that you used to get that, which parts of those were most pivotal in you getting a vaginal birth. And I'm sure that's going to be peppered all the way through your story. Let's start with your first pregnancy, because, understanding the reason for the first cesarean can be really impactful for what happens following. So I'm going to give you the floor.
Yeah. So I fell pregnant in Feb 2021, and I'm from Melbourne. So that was peak COVID lockdown. Couldn't go to Europe, so we had a baby instead. That was the plan. Easy pregnancy. I was very fortunate to have a blessed pregnancy, no real complications, things like that. So I was very low risk. I was in the midwifery group program at my hospital, my public hospital, which were amazing.
Here, Marissa is talking about a publicly funded midwifery group practice program that she was able to access through her local hospital. So these midwifery programs are free to use in Australia, but access is still limited because they are often only available to women whose pregnancies are considered low risk and for women who get in early. They fill up really quickly. They're quite popular. Also, not all hospitals offer midwifery care programs, so your access to these will be impacted by where you live and if you have complexities in your pregnancy. The great thing about midwifery programs is that women get to know the midwives who are caring for them, because the same midwife or group of midwives will be providing the care during pregnancy, birth, and postpartum. So if you can get into a midwifery group program, you are more likely to have a better birth experience. Unfortunately, while these programs are evidence-based, they can be very hard to access. My tip here is, even if you're planning a VBAC, is to try and get a midwife who will care for you all through your pregnancy, birth, and postpartum. You can try and get on a midwifery group program through a hospital, or hire your own private midwife, which might be your only opportunity for continuity of midwifery care if your local services don't have a midwifery program. Or if they do have a midwifery program, often those programs doesn't care for women who are planning VBAC. Some do. Some are called all-risk models. So it's worth investigating what your midwifery options are through hospital when you're planning your VBAC.
And I really had a great pregnancy. I was aiming for a vaginal delivery. I had no concerns that I wouldn't achieve that. I went to 42 weeks. So I went overs in quotation marks, even though I knew that 42 weeks was really one of my end dates. And there was no discussion of induction or anything like that before that point, because I was a part of the midwifery group program, which I was very fortunate for. But I kept asking the way through, how is my son measuring? Because my husband was 10 pounds at 38 weeks born. And my sister and I, as twins, we were about 6.5, 7 pounds each. So we were big as well for twins at full gestation. So, but they're like, he's measuring normal. Anyway, I got to 42 weeks and I was like, okay, it was kind of that induction time. And we wanted to try the lowest grade induction first, or the balloon, to try and give my body the best chance of kind of going into that labour beyond that point, rather than having my waters broken and the induction drugs put in.
Marissa is talking about the process of induction of labour for women who haven't started labour yet. If you are new to learning about birth or haven't looked into induction yet, the Great Birth Rebellion podcast has a number of episodes about induction, including about the research, the process of induction, and some of the risks. So there is a list in the show notes with clickable links for you to look deeper into the option of induction and see if it feels right for you. What Marissa's talking about here is that she opted for the balloon catheter, which is a catheter that's about 0.5 centimetre wide, and it's inserted into your vagina and up into your cervix. And once it's in your cervix, it's inflated, and 1 or 2 balloons inflate in your cervix as a way of kind of prying it open to start dilating it?
So we did that. Unfortunately, I didn't dilate that much. It was 2 centimeters overnight. And then from then, it really was a cascade of interventions from that point. So in the morning, I was still confident I could deliver vaginally. Waters are broken. A few hours after that, nothing really had progressed. So we had drugs put in. And then from there, obviously with the contractions got really intense really quickly. I couldn't really acclimate to the pain. So from that point, I really lasted 4 hours, I think, and then had the epidural. And then from that point, it was a slow next 15 hours of just kind of like trying to move around. I still could move around enough, but then my son became posterior. So we're trying to move around different positions. And then from what I remember, almost 4 years ago now, he was impacted on my pelvis. So I had blood in my urine, and then I had a low-grade fever. So they were treating all these things.
This combination of things that Marissa is describing sounds to me like what midwives call and doctors call obstructed labour, meaning for some reason the baby is being prevented from coming out. And an obstruction can be caused by a few things. Could be posterior babies in an uneven position, epidural, the pelvis size, the force of contractions, the size of the baby, and things that maybe compact and further push the baby into that compaction, like really strong contractions or an induction. There can be lots of things, but with obstructed labour, we typically see this pattern where there's blood in the woman's urine, fever, an extended period of time in labour, and over time the baby can become distressed if the reason for obstruction isn't resolved.
And I think by the end of it, I had dilated to around 7 centimeters, I think. But this was like 30 plus hours from the balloon until this point. So I was exhausted. Even with the epidural, I was exhausted. And I had a wonderful OB who came in, very calm, sweet, sweet man. And he said, "Hey, Marissa, there's no pressure at all, but you've been here for a long time now and you're not progressing as much as we'd like to see you. Do you think maybe it's time for a cesarean?" And I said, "Okay." By this stage, I was exhausted. I was like, I'm done now. I think I kind of maxed out all my capabilities to what I can do. And they pulled my son out eventually 10 minutes later, and they all started laughing because he was humongous. He had a 40 centimeter head, set 4.72 kilos, just like a big, big kid. So obviously, yeah, he just didn't want to come out, and everyone started laughing. And I was fortunate that I had a very casual style cesarean. It wasn't that emergency cesarean that a lot of people do experience, which I was very fortunate for. And I didn't have the trauma of a traumatic birth, which I'm also very, very fortunate for. I felt very in control of my decisions to have cesarean.
This right here, this is the key element for women. Even when things don't go to plan in your birth, feeling in control of decisions at your birth are a key element of leaving your birth not feeling traumatized. Your birth might not be what you wanted. You can still and may still feel disappointed by the events, but if you feel like you were in control of the decisions that you made, this is a key element to avoiding trauma at your birth. And I'm going to take this opportunity to let you know about a masterclass that I just ran a few days ago. It was all about how to increase your chances of having a great birth. If you couldn't be there live, that's okay. We've got a recording of the masterclass. If you go to melaниethemidwife.com and you can listen to the masterclass for free. It's all about increasing your chances of having a great birth. And this here, what Marissa is talking about, the feeling of being in control of the decisions that are made at your birth, is a key element of leaving your birth without feeling traumatized.
I just found my induction part the trauma point for me. I hated the idea of being induced, and I think that caused a lot of stress on my body, and I couldn't get Levi into the right position because I couldn't move very well with the epidural. So then fast forward, fell pregnant again. In between both pregnancies, I had a miscarriage, I had a molar pregnancy. So I was already very aware of how medicalized the system was through that process as well. So then this time around, fell pregnant. Post-COVID, I think a lot of people are swinging to a less medicalized system, which I definitely am that kind of person now too. And from the start, in my mind, I was torn between the idea of oh, cesarean's just easier. It's elective. I can just stroll myself in, leave. I can go to my parents' house. That kind of idea of being a mum and trying to, risk manage everything. It felt like the easier option. So I didn't apply for the midwifery program because of that. I didn't want to steal someone else's spot who really wanted quite a holistic birth. I wasn't going to choose that option in the end. Quite selfless of me, but I was like, looking back now, I'm like, it was the best decision, but I probably should have just been selfish and applied anyway. I was torn, but I deep down, I still really wanted a vaginal delivery. I very strongly believe that this is how God's designed us to be able to give birth and carry a child and give birth vaginally. And I really wanted to trust my body that I knew that I could do it. I just wasn't allowed to the first time around. My body just didn't allow it for whatever reason. And I wanted to fix that for this time around. So got into the system, went to my hospital. The first appointment I had was with an OB actually this time rather than a midwife. And the first thing they said to me was like, oh, you don't want to have 36 hours again for another cesarean. Just go for the elective cesarean. Don't even bother with vaginal delivery. They didn't even bring up a vaginal delivery. They just said cesarean. And I was like, oh, okay, sure, fine. So I kind of slipped under the radar for a little bit. Didn't really say too much about my, birth plan or birth options. And they just kind of just penned me as an elective cesarean. So I was like, I'm not going to say anything until I know what I want to do. So yeah, went through probably most of my pregnancy, still tossing up. And I think it was around 30 weeks. So it was quite late in my pregnancy, but I hadn't really decided yet. And I think it was my 28 or 30 week appointment. The obstetrician that I saw said, oh, so you booked in at 39 weeks to cesarean. And I was like, 39 weeks? She's like, yeah. I'm like, I don't want to, if I'm going to have cesarean, it's going to be after my due date. And she's like, no, we don't do that here. It's 39 weeks. And I was like, oh, cancel it. I was like, there's no way I'm getting cesarean before my due date because it's not giving my body a chance to even deliver naturally or go into spontaneous labor. I think from then, that's when I decided the system isn't in my favor for letting my body to go into spontaneous labor, which is what I need to deliver vaginally in my mind. So from then, I'm also Greek, so I'm really stubborn. So I was like, that's it. Foot down. I'm not having a cesarean. I'm having a VBAC. That's like, it is final in my mind.
Here we go. Marissa is about to explain some of the critical elements that I think tip the odds in her favor for a VBAC. Firstly, she talks about her absolute stubbornness and determination, and this gives women a lot of grit and resistance in being swayed. So pay attention. She's about to stack some other tips about how she had the VBAC of her dreams.
So from then, I just tried to immerse myself with as much information as possible.
There's another one. Immersing in as much information as possible. This is Marissa realizing the importance of being educated enough so that if she needed to, she would have the power to make informed decisions that she could feel good about.
I joined the VBAC Australia Facebook page, which has been instrumental in just feeling confident hearing other women's birth stories. Or
there is another one. Gathering support and hope from a like-minded community. So remembering this is something that Marissa pursued. She didn't sit back and wait for people to come to her. She took an active interest in her birth experience. And hearing the stories of women who have done what you want to do, it strengthens your resolve because you know it's possible.
Or failed VBACs and what they think could have fixed that given story that really helped me. I read the Birth After Cesarean book, which is wonderful as well. They really helped me feel more equipped.
Here, Marissa is still gathering information and becoming as educated as possible. And this book that she's talking about is called Birth After Cesarean by a friend of mine, Dr. Hazel Keedle. And we have interviewed Hazel on the podcast before about birth after cesarean and about her book. So I've linked the episode in the show notes so you can go back and listen to that one. It's something that helped Marissa. And it could help you too.
And then obviously listen to the podcast too, which is amazing as well as hearing different stories. And from a medicalized point of view, the kind of the fear tactics that a lot of the system puts on you, that, the abruption, these kind of things, if you go overs or not having enough amniotic fluid in your uterus and all this stuff, that I was like, is it actually valid or is it just a minute percentage in the worst case scenario? So I wanted to feel equipped so I could tell my obstetrics team and everyone else, hey, this is why I'm deciding this. And then I kind of knew that my body probably wasn't prepared enough for a vaginal delivery the first time around. it was COVID, so we were very limited in Melbourne to go see, bodywork specialists or osteos to get manipulation done. And I kind of felt now looking back at what I could have done better was my body actually prepared enough? With a tightness or sore spots that baby couldn't descend properly from my pelvis, that I could actually mitigate this time around.
Here's another strategy. Recognizing and mitigating risk factors, or at least understanding your personal circumstances and taking steps to see if there is something that you can do ahead of time to mitigate the risk factors that you might have, or change your personal circumstance to give yourself the best chance of avoiding the things that you don't want to happen to you. Here, Marissa felt that there was some work that she could do on her body to avoid what happened last time, that obstructed labor that she was speaking about.
So, funny enough, a girl that I had seen on my first pregnancy just via Zoom to talk about birth preferences called Gabby, she had now started a bodywork company called G. Laurie Bodywork, Labor and Bodywork. And she was actually a midwife at my hospital when I delivered as well. And so I was like, I'm going to reach out to her to see if I can get some bodywork done to see if there's some tight spots that is kind of impacting how baby's moving down the birth canal, and I can kind of mitigate. And she, I would probably say, would be the biggest influence into my outcome of my VBAC. I saw her and she was like, oh, your external body and muscles are actually really loose. You've got no sore spots. Your hip flexors are really nice and loose. It's all great. She's like, I suspect you've got internal tension. And so she directed me to one of your podcasts. I can't remember what the episode was, but it was with you spoke to someone who did internal release work.
The episode she's referring to here is the episode that I did with Fiona Hallinan on internal release work. I've linked it in the show notes for you. Easy to find if you want to listen to that.
And she's like, it's a little bit woo-woo, but just listen to it. She's like, that's what we're going to be doing. And it was amazing. So I was like, it just makes sense, obviously. You've got tight spots on your muscles. You can have the same internally. So we did 2 or 3 sessions, I think, of internal release work. And it was funny, the first session, she's like, there's so much tightness internally on your left side, which she was talking about the left side as female is our feminine side and how that can impact birth and baby living vaginally. So we did a couple of sessions of internal release work, which I think was an absolute game changer. I had a really tight cervix and sacrum at the back, which I was like, that's probably impacting how my son could have come out. If it was so tight, there's no space for him to come out and it's so tense. That was, I think my last session with her was around the 38-week mark. And the day after, I had contractions all day, which was huge for me because with my son, I had no spontaneous labor signs whatsoever. So I was like, okay, something's happening. This is great. Beyond those things that kind of helped me mentally prepare and kind of physically prepare, I did all the other things like the dates, the raspberry leaf teas. I was like, I'm throwing everything at this. And if it still ended up a cesarean, I did all I could do.
Yes, this is it. She's nailed it. Do all that you can do. Find the parts of your journey that you can be in control of. Do all that you can do so that if things don't turn out the way you planned, you know that there was nothing more that you could do to change it.
So yeah, I was having like 6 dates a day. It was summer, so I was having like a chilled raspberry leaf tea mocktail with like pineapple juice and coconut water. So I was doing all the things that I could be doing. I was still exercising regularly 3 days a week with strength Pilates in the gym. So I felt really physically strong. Yeah, and prayer, all the things I could kind of shove into my brain without maxing it out. I'm going to do. And then around the 38-week mark, I just stopped. I was like, no more. My brain's full. I've learned all I can learn now. I'm not going to try and stress myself over anything else that I need. It's done. Let's just be confident in my body and what, I can do from here. So that's how it kind of went until that point. And then it was like a waiting game. And I was getting really over waiting. I think when you bring a toddler at home, you're like, oh, and it's hot. It was like 40 degrees in Melbourne. I was like, I'm sweating all the time. I'm over this. Yeah, my son being 42 weeks induced, I wasn't planning to go any earlier than 42 weeks. I was like, I'm in for the long game. It's going to happen again. And then, yeah, so after I saw Gabby that last time, I had contractions all day. And I was like, oh, that's really odd. But then it kind of stopped after that point. So I was like, okay, no worries. Hopefully it's just my body preparing. And then at 40 and 5, that's when my daughter was born. In the morning at 3 a.m., I woke up to like period style pain. I was like, I need to go to the bathroom. Went to the bathroom and I had loose bowel motion. I was like, oh, okay, that's weird, but maybe I just ate something. Yet again, I've never had spontaneous labour before, so I don't know what any symptoms are. I'm like, okay, maybe I ate bad food. But then I went twice again, same thing, contractions, kind of just steady every 10 minutes or so. And I was like, okay, maybe I should start timing these.
For those playing at home, it's common for your body to try and purge your bowels just before or during early labour. So that is what Marissa is experiencing here.
And then that was 3 a.m. By 5 when my husband woke up, I was having them every 4 minutes, quite very consistent for like 30 seconds to a minute. And then we were on the way to the hospital at around 9 a.m. every 2 minutes at that stage. So I knew that the second I went into labour, I was like, I am trying to stay home for as long as possible. That's what I had heard was the best thing to do. Stay out of the hospital for as long as possible.
She's right. This is another strategy to increase your chances of having a low intervention birth. Research shows that the longer you are in hospital, the more likely you are to be exposed to interventions and increasing number of interventions. So the longer you're there, the more interventions you're likely to get. So Marissa knew this and stayed at home as long as possible to give herself the best chance of a vaginal birth this time.
And that was my plan until I felt like my husband was like, let's go now. I'm like, oh, I can wait a little bit longer. Like, let's leave now, please. It's peak hour traffic. So, so I was at home for as long as possible. And by the time I got into the hospital, it was around like 9:30. I consented to a vaginal exam to see where I was. And I was at 5 centimeters already, which is for me was like, I'm like, that's amazing. I'm already halfway. That's better than I had with my son. And the team that I had, so I didn't have a continuous care this time around. So it was just whoever was at the hospital that day. And I had a wonderful midwife, Holly, and I think her name is Christine as well, and 2 student midwives. They were both on rotation. And they were, really significant in the outcome of my birth as well. I had written my birth plan that I didn't want to have, an epidural again, because I was very aware the epidural stalled my labour or just stalled the progression of my labour with my son. But I said on my birth plan, epidural only if I'm past 7 centimeters or only when I'm in active labour, because I knew that if I can get to active labour before an epidural, I have a much better chance of delivering vaginally because she's already in the right spot. She's already descending. It shouldn't impact my labour progression. And there were a few times that I think that with the gas and air in between, been like, I want the epidural. And Holly's like, no, we'll turn up the gas and air a little bit further. We'll turn up a little bit further. There's still more to go. And that was really instrumental. And the hospitals the midwives are very pro VBAC. So that was really great. I knew if I had midwives on my team, they're like, go for it. And so she was like, we're getting you this feedback and we're very pro you just doing what you need to do. We're going to ignore us and we're here if you need us. But Holly was great and just kind of pushing me, saying, no, more gas and air. You can do this, Marissa. And then by the time it was like the full maxed out gas and air, she's like, would you like me to check where you are? And then you can tell me your number in your mind. That's fine. And if we're there, we can do the epidural. And she checked, and it's probably after I think it's probably 12. So 3 hours after I had arrived, I was at 7. And that for me, I was like, okay, cool. I know I was already in that the transition stage of labor. I could feel my body really bearing down. And I was like, this is feeling, my waters hadn't broken yet either. So it was so much pressure, so heavy. And when she actually checked me, she broke my waters. And I was like, thank God. But then obviously the contractions got worse after the point. Yeah, I got the epidural. So I thought my story is a little bit different because I got the epidural and I still had the VBAC. I know a lot of women who have the VBAC kind of mindset of very no interventions. I was okay with intervention if I still got the results. I don't think I could have. This is my first experience of a proper labour. I don't know if I could have done it without the epidural. So for me, it took ages. It took an hour and a half the epidural as well to go in. It took forever. So I was just like, it was painful waiting. But after it was done 2 o'clock after I was in, and I delivered her just after 6 p.m. So from start to finish, it's actually a significantly shorter labour than my first. But my body could actually acclimate. I could still move around. I was shuffling different positions. I was going my 4-point kneeling. I was moving around. So I didn't want to have a full block. I wanted to still move around. I knew that was important as well if there was any, impacting. yeah, I kind of say my daughter and I were a good team because she really did a good job as well of being in the right position, being engaged for a really long time and shifting where I needed her to be. So yeah, after that point, it was like maybe quarter past, it was 5:30. She's like, let's do another check on you. It's my new midwife, Christine, because the OB wants to see where you're at. And she's like, oh, you're 10 plus 2. She's like, you're ready to go. She's like, congratulations, you're not having a cesarean anymore. And it was a really beautiful moment because she's like, she had kind of seen my whole story and I shared everything with her as well after I was nice and calm, epidural. And she's like, congrats, this is not going to be a cesarean for you. So pushing was very interesting because I'd never pushed before. So I needed a fair bit of coaching because I was like, she's like, bear down. I was like, isn't that what I'm doing? She's like, no. I was like, okay. So I didn't want to deliver on my back in stirrup because I knew as well the risk of tearing would be increased with that. So we're doing a lot of different positions first. Sideline, 4-point kneel, leaning over the bed. And I just wasn't engaging. The mind-body connection wasn't there for me.
What Marissa's talking about here with epidurals, this is very common because an epidural significantly reduces the sensations that you feel during labour. So it's very hard to know when and how to push when it's time to push your baby out if you've got an epidural. So usually when it comes to pushing, my advice is to go with your body. But when you've got an epidural, the pushing process is different. You do need some guidance from your care providers because you aren't feeling labour in the same way as you would without an epidural. So for this reason, women often do need coaching to push and to help them get their baby out. And that's what Marissa's explaining here.
So after like 20 minutes, she's like, hey, Marissa, let's try on your back and see how it goes. And I got it straight away. It just made the most sense to me. So I was pushing for probably about 20 minutes by that stage. And the OB's like, hey, Marissa, if you don't get baby out, because her obs were a little bit up and down, they're like, if you don't get baby out in the next 5-10 minutes, we're going to use forceps and episiotomy. And I just did not want that. I was like, I'd rather tear. I don't want episiotomy. And I don't know what happened, but I think it was the fetal ejection reflex. My daughter literally just shot out with one push and her head like shot out. They were like, slow down, slow down. I was like, I didn't do anything. She shot out. And then after that, I slowly pushed her out for the rest of her. But yeah, her head shot out. I got a 2nd degree tear because of it. And she burst through, I think, one of the blood vessels on her way out. So I had a 1.2 litre hemorrhage. And half of it was from before she was even born. But she just did the rest for me. And that was it. They're like, you really didn't want the episiotomy? I'm like, no, I didn't want to be cut. She just shot out. It was all a bit of a blur after that. Because like I say, I was having a hemorrhage. They called, emergency and stuff as well. So after like 5 people being, there's like 20 people after 5 minutes. And I'm just like a little bit in la la land. Like my husband's like just white as a ghost, being like, oh my goodness. And I'm like, unwrapping the cord from her neck, like la 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 la, just like holding her and rubbing her back, make sure she starts crying. And he just like white as ghost. Everyone's stabbing me with like, I don't know, different things, blood clotting things. And I'm like, I didn't care at that point. I was like, I'm done with the medical stuff. I don't care. Put the drugs in me, just get everything out, get done, sew me up, I'm good. And that was it. I think I'm still in a bit of shock thinking that I had a VBAC. I think it was one of those things that as females, we probably do put in a bit of a pedestal as like the ultimate end goal, which it's wonderful, but any birth is beautiful, obviously. I think for me, it was just like, oh, I did it. And it wasn't as hard as I thought it'd be. The hardest part was going to spontaneous labor. The birth part wasn't. It was my body shook over. My body knew what to do. It was the spontaneous labor that was the hardest hill to climb for me, I guess, and even mentally and physically. And it was awesome. She was just there, and I'm like, it was a great team effort. Everyone at the hospital were sensational. Literally every single midwife, OBs, they were pretty good, but a lot of the ones I saw during my pregnancy were very anti-VBAC. But the ones I had on the day were wonderful. The midwifery team were just sensational at the hospital, and after that all came in, they were like cheering me. They were so happy, and it was just really special. I think they have it. The hospital is Boxall Hospital in Melbourne. They have 80% VBAC success rate from 70-80%. So if you go there, you're most likely going to have a VBAC if that's what you're planning, which is another thing that I felt really confident in, that the team there wanted the best outcome for me and they knew it was going to be VBAC. And it was special that I had 2 student midwives there too. So they were really happy. They were like, this is amazing. This is the coolest thing ever, seeing a VBAC. So yeah, it was a really special experience for me and one that I was really proud that I got to do.
So there were obvious elements in there that really were pivotal in you
Mm.
getting the outcome that you wanted.
Yeah.
So already, and I feel like so many women will be in this position where they're, in their really close to giving birth, really like
Yeah.
making that decision at 30 odd weeks to have a VBAC. There's not a lot of there's not a lot of planning time. You're already into the model of care that you're in. There's so many things that are already set.
Yes.
And to me, it sounds like the really pivotal points were, firstly, obviously it was a deal breaker to have a cesarean sooner than your due date, which
Yeah.
I love that you made that conclusion. If your last baby went to 42 weeks, it's quite possible that your other babies are going to need longer to gestate as well. And so a 39-week cesarean section for you could be a birth 2, maybe 3 weeks earlier than your baby needs. So that feels like a really pivotal point where you're like, do you know what? That's a massive deal breaker. I need to consider another option. And then you kind of made the best out of whatever scenario you were in. There was no continuity of care at the time. It was obvious that the obstetricians preferred that you had a cesarean section again. And so then you pursued this body work. And the podcast episode you were referring to was with Fiona Hallinan when we talked about internal release work, which obviously made some kind of difference to your internal pelvic structure and helped the baby navigate your pelvis. And a few other things that I think were great that really all women could do is wait at home a bit longer before you go to hospital, because like you said, you got there and you're already in established labour. Can I ask what kinds of things helped you at home? Because something that holds women back from staying at home is they either feel a bit frightened or unprepared, or maybe their partner's a little bit uncertain about being at home in labour. Was there anything that you did at home before going to the hospital that made you feel confident to stay as long as you needed to?
Well, I had everything kind of packed and ready to go. So I had my TENS machine here that I'd used for my first pregnancy that I really loved as pain management. I didn't really get around the combs or those kind of things. And the fortunate thing was, as good or bad, that my son is a chronic waker up overnight. So my husband was in his room all night. So I was actually by myself for a bit of the time. So I didn't have to tell anyone. That was probably the best thing. So I woke up and I was like, oh, no, I was not going to be awake for the next couple of hours. I can just do my own thing and just be here. I found acclimating to the pain so much easier to navigate than when you're induced and that pain, the threshold is so high straight away. Because in my mind, I had the experience of an induced contractions. I was like, my levels up here, what they're going to feel like, and it wasn't. So I was like, oh, okay, this is fine. I can manage this. And I'm not the best. I don't have the highest pain threshold, but I was like, oh, I can manage this. And then by the time my husband got up, my son was still asleep, which is great too. So we kind of he's like, do you need anything? I'm like, I'm going to eat now. I think if I'm going to eat, it should be soon. So my husband made me high protein food. So I felt like I had energy. I'd also got to mention I saw my naturopath as well previously, probably around 30-ish weeks too. So she was also like, yes, no cesarean, have a vaginal delivery. And she gave me all these tonics and stuff to kind of help, and a kind of a bit of a care plan for when I go into labor, having magnesium powders. So it's also on top of that as well. I think it kept me, so during the day I had my hydration station, all my water and my magnesium thing going. So I kind of just waited it out. I was timing, just breathing through everything, trying to be as kind of mind body connected as possible when I was at home. And I wasn't opposed to going to hospital earlier. It was more so I don't need to go yet. I'm going to go when I feel like I can't manage the pain anymore. That was my threshold. It wasn't about the timing. It was, can I manage this pain by myself? And then also, it was also peak hour traffic time with schools. So I was like, it's 8:39. It's going to take us a little bit longer to get to hospital. So we tried to time it around 8-ish. My husband was like, it's every 3 minutes. Let's go now. I'm like, no, I'm still happy to stay here. He was kind of pushing me to go. And I was like, no, I'm still comfortable. I'm managing the pain fine. I've only just put the TENS on. Let's just wait a little bit longer. There wasn't a hard and fast, we're going to leave this time. It was let's just see how I'm feeling and kind of drag it out a little bit until I feel like maybe it's the best thing to do. This is more intuition. Let's leave now. Yeah, but I felt comfortable. My waters hadn't broken, so I didn't have to worry about mess yet at that stage. So there's no towels needed. I'm just comfortable, just kind of sitting on my bed in different positions.
Well, so do you think this is a big question too. I mean, if you had another baby,
Mm.
do you think there's anything you would do differently from this time? Like, it sounds like you're pretty satisfied with the overall
Yeah.
outcome.
Yeah. In an ideal world, I'd have a home birth. I think that'd be so awesome, or a water birth. Because I had the continuous monitoring this time around, which is part of the hospital policy they didn't really want me to sway from. And I probably didn't, I guess, care enough to say no to. I couldn't do a water birth.
What Marissa's talking about here is CTG heart rate monitoring for her baby, where two circular monitor discs are strapped onto your belly, about the size of a tennis ball, and they relay the baby's heart rate continuously back to a machine, which gives you a readout of your baby's heart rate. It also can tell when you're having a contraction. So most hospitals won't allow you to get in the water if a CTG monitor is on. Some have waterproof monitors that could work remotely, so the cords don't have to be attached to the machine, but that's not always possible depending on where you are. So having a CTG applied is usually part of the VBAC policy in a lot of hospitals. So if you want to have a VBAC in hospital, the staff there and the policy would state that you have to have a CTG, but there are other options, and I encourage you to listen to the Great Birth Rebellion episodes that we have on CTG, which I will link into the show notes. We've done multiple episodes. Always remembering that just because it's a policy doesn't mean you need to accept it. You can make an informed decision that is different to the policy. So another thing to mention here is that even if you do manage to avoid the CTG monitoring, lots of hospitals will also state that women having a VBAC can't use the bath during labour or birth. So not all hospitals, but just so you know that VBAC policies can be restrictive like that. So if you're planning a VBAC in hospital, it can be helpful to get them to print out their labour and birth policy for VBAC so that you know what to expect from them. You can research which parts of the policy you're willing to accept and which parts you would like to decline. This just means that you're ready so that your expectations can be met. If you're going into hospital expecting to be able to use water for labour and birth, and then you're surprised when you get there, that's going to be a harder situation to manage than if you're prepared ahead of time.
That would be like ideal situation. My only drawback is the fact that I have had both pregnancies and my miscarriage. I had postpartum hemorrhaging every single time. So that's my only drawback for having a home birth, although I could be transferred to the hospital. But a water birth, so I could be in the hospital. I don't mind. That would be like an ideal situation. That seems like really tranquil and like nice. I like heat. It makes me feel calm. So that would be really helpful, I think.
And because your sister Beck is planning her VBAC now, what advice have you given her about what she can do to also have a vaginal birth this time?
I think that what I've been telling her is definitely get her body physically right. I think the mental thing is easy to kind of build upon for weeks and weeks as you progress. Just our personality type. The physical part was something that we really needed to get right earlier on. So then the mental thing kind of fit in place because she's had a lot of SPD pain, because she had a very traumatic cesarean, like category life and siren, baby out in 5 minutes kind of thing. She has a lot of adhesions on a cesarean scar and a lot of nerve pulling through that. So I was like, Beckett, the one thing you have to do, and she actually saw Gabby before I did for her initial pregnancy, but she's getting a lot of scar adhesion work, and she's actually going today for her first internal release work. She knows that that's going to be significant just because of the stored trauma in her body. I think once you have a cesarean, regardless if it's a traumatic cesarean or quite a casual one, you have a lot of stored trauma in your body. Your body remembers that, even if your mind has kind of taken at peace with it. I had a funny, fine, nice cesarean. I'm taking photos, but my labor was really traumatic. I really disliked that part of my experience. And I had stored that trauma as fear of being able to feel confident in my body. So I think the body work and the internal release work really helps release that and allow your body to let it go so your body can be ready and prepared enough for the journey your baby needs to take in your pelvis to be birthed vaginally. So that I think is definitely the number one thing that I tell everyone in the VBAC support group in Facebook. I'm like, what do I do? I'm like, body work. Do the body work. like, I'm having predominant labor. I'm like, do the body work, get your body right. Your baby say it wants to come out and it can't. Do body work. And I think that's my key. I feel like you can kind of be as stubborn as you want with your providers. If you've got, different care model, you can kind of risk manage that or mitigate that. The bodywork stuff, if you don't get right, it'll be an uphill battle, I think, in the labor process trying to deliver your baby.
If you're listening and thinking, great, my next step is to go get some body work, I'll link to all those podcast episodes, and then, you can make some decisions about who you're going to see. Certainly the option of osteopathic work and chiropractic work and internal release work in order to optimize alignment. Thank you so much for telling your story. I'm sure there is going to be definite parts of this that women can pick up, take away, and go home with. And there's just so much hope, particularly for women who have left planning maybe till later in their pregnancy, that this is absolutely possible. And the other really big things that I took away from that as well is that your midwives are on your side. They were on the team to get you there, and that there were things that they could do for you, particularly in points of weakness where you're thinking, okay, I really want to have an epidural now. They're like, let's keep going, let's keep going, let's keep going. I think that sounded really pivotal as well, that they were on your side for it. And obviously that your body was like, absolutely not, we're not doing this episiotomy and forceps. Like, this is my time to shine.
I think you've got to be stubborn. You've got to really dig your heels in. And if you want the VBAC, you're going against a system who doesn't want you to have the VBAC. So you've got to be stubborn and just say, I don't give an SHIT. I'm going to do this and give it all I have until I can't do it, or if I can't do it. I'm not opposed to medical system working when it needs to, but I was like, don't sell me short what my body is designed to do. I can do it. My body's been designed to do this. And unless there's some kind of medical reason why I cannot, let me be and let me just do what I need to do.
Yeah, you just wanted to go all the way to the very last point and find your limit. And then obviously if you found your limit, then you're like, do you know what? I'm willing to accept whatever needs to happen here, not before your personal limit is met.
100%.
So valuable. Thank you so much for coming on the podcast.
Loved it.
To get access to the resources for each podcast episode, join the mailing list at melaniethemidwife.com, and to support the work of this podcast, wear the rebellion in the form of clothing and other merch at thegreatbirthrebellion.com. Follow me, Mel, at Melanie the Midwife on socials, and the show at The Great Birth Rebellion. All the details are in the show notes.